the number of jobs open are not what they are portrayed to be. And two is you can't really make someone a information security professional after a 6-month boot camp. There's a lot of numbers saying, there's millions of information security jobs. That's clearly not the case. There's no real actuarial numbers. A lot of these are predictions.
SC Media and our Diamond sponsor, Savient, are proud to present this month's CISO Stories program. Each month, the CISO Stories program explores a cybersecurity topic selected by Cyber Risk Alliance's CISO community and provides content that examines that topic from a variety of perspectives. Hosted by Todd Fitzgerald, best-selling author of CISO Compass, the CISO Stories weekly podcast features content powered by the 1,100-plus members of the Cyber Risk Alliance's CISO community. Listen to the previous CISO Stories podcast episodes at CISOstoriespodcast.com.
The Cybersecurity Collaborative is a unique membership community enabling cybersecurity leaders to work together in a trusted environment. To learn more, visit CISOstoriespodcast.com/CSC. I'm your host, Todd Fitzgerald, and this week we welcome Ben Rothke, Senior Information Security Manager at TAPED. So Ben, tell us, I've known you a long time. What attracted you to the cybersecurity field?
Fame, fortune, jet setting around the world on, hunting down cyber criminals. But I think a lot of people, people like different things. And, I found security quite interesting from a lot of different areas. There's people, there's technologies, there's challenges. It's always changing. It's obviously, critical to all of IT. So, there's a lot of different aspects. And so, a number of years ago, was working in IT, started getting involved in more information security projects, and then became, an information security professional.
Well, I think that's great. I know you've had some roles as CISOs of some large organizations, and I know you read a lot too. You've done a lot of book reviews out there as well.
Yeah, I mean, IT in general, and information security specifically, is quite dynamic. Meaning, if you took a pediatrician and he retired and he came back 5 years later, for the most part, could hit the ground running. Obviously, some new medicines get up to speed on things. But if you took someone in security, he retired and comes back 5 years later, it's almost a different world. So I enjoy reading, but with that, if you want to stay, be a valuable asset and stay current, you have to, keep reading. So I've been writing a monthly book review for the RSA Security blog for a number of years now. So the good thing is, there's a lot of great authors out there. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
So it's a good way to stay current in the industry.
Yeah, and you contributed to the CISO Compass book and wrote about it was about GDPR, how to handle GDPR without losing your mind, which I love the article, which is not what we're talking about today, but thanks for contributing to that. And I love the point about, if you weren't, if you aren't staying with it and knowing what's going on, you can become obsolete very quickly. I mean, just think if you went to sleep last year and now you woke up and people are talking about this chat GPT stuff. You'd say, well, why is everybody knowing what this stuff is? The world changes in a year, doesn't it?
Yeah. Almost monthly. So it is, for a lot of people, they don't like IT for that reason, because, with the exception of, say, maybe if you're going to be a COBOL programmer or, something very specific, it is so changing and so dynamic. They want some things, that a different type of career job that's, less changing. So, if you could deal with that change, the dynamic nature, then, hey, it's a great field.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful field, which brings us to our topic today. You've been writing the last few years, and you wrote a recent piece on is there really an information security jobs crisis?
Mhm.
So what's your viewpoint on that?
Um, there's a lot of job crises, throughout our country, meaning there's a shortage of airline mechanics, there's a shortage of pilots, there's a shortage of pediatric neurologists, and there's also a shortage of information security professionals. Um, but you're not going to, walk through an airport and see a sign, become a rheumatologist, a high-paying rheumatologist in 6 months after taking, rheumatology boot camp, or enter the exciting field of aviation mechanics after 6 months of taking the boot camp. But you do see this in information security. There's a lot of these courses, these boot camps to get people up and running, to get them these jobs. I think there's two things at play here. Is there's not really the number of jobs open are not what they are portrayed to be, and two is you can't really make someone a information security professional after a 6 month boot camp. There's a lot of numbers saying, there's millions of information security jobs. That's clearly not the case. There's no real actuarial numbers. A lot of these are predictions. And, something as simple as, if you do a search on monster.com for information security jobs in Tampa, Florida, you get this number X. But that doesn't mean there's that many jobs there. Many times, you could have 100 listings for the same job. For example, you have some huge companies, JP Morgan, for example, that will put out a job rec for a security consultant, and they'll send it to a number of BPO firms. And they in turn may, subcontract it to another firm. So you may have this one information security analyst position that they're hiring for. But if you looked on monster.com or some other job sites, you'd think that there's 100, jobs there. And it's, in some ways it's like houses. There's the multiple listing service. And so this one house could be sold by a lot of different agents. But that doesn't mean there's, 1,000 houses for sale in that city. It might be 80 houses. You just have a lot of, listing agents. So I said there's, two main things is the numbers are not there. There's not millions of security jobs. And B is, to fix the problem, you can't just, put people in these, quick boot camps and expect to fix the problem. It's a lot, broader, a lot more, complex than that.
The world is changing, including how we work. As business shifts from on-prem legacy systems to the cloud, how will you safeguard your organization? It all starts with identity that is intelligent, autonomous, and constantly adapting to your changing environments. Savient Enterprise Identity Cloud is the only identity platform designed to accelerate your cloud initiatives and solve the toughest security and compliance challenges. Built on the principles of Zero Trust, Savient centralizes visibility and risk management, ensuring that the right identities get the right access to the right resources at the right time. Visit CISOstoriespodcast.com/Savient for a demo of the only identity platform CISOs need.
So how does one look at these job listings and realize that there's really only one job just replicated 100 different times?
It's really not that difficult because, if you look at the job description, you'll see they're, exactly the same. Even, certain acronyms used, I'll talk about their specific system. So if you just look at them, you could tell it that way. Anyone who's, looked for it, been actively looking, you'll often get, 20 emails within a 30-minute period because these large companies will push out a new rec and they in turn, are going to send it to all their contacts. So it's really, if you all it takes is a few minutes of looking, under the hood. But a lot of the media is just going to take this number of millions of information security jobs, assuming it's coming from it's a legitimate number, and they'll report that. And that number just keeps snowballing.
Hmm.
But once again, just take a few minutes. Trust but verify. Look a little deeper, and you'll see. These are not actuarial numbers. They're often predictions based on certain scenarios that really don't play out. So the short answer is there an information security job shortage? Yeah, there is a lot of openings. Companies are struggling in many times to find good people. Another secondary problem is a lot of companies are not willing to pay market rates for consultants or employees. But what it comes down to, if a company's willing to pay um, a market rate, they, for the most part, won't have a problem, finding good people. It may take a while. Clearly, if someone's going to say, work for a consultant for Morgan Stanley, Deutsche Bank in New York City, your consulting rate is going to be a lot more than if you're, working for a smaller nonprofit. So it's not that the nonprofits have to, pay the same wages, the same rates, but they have to be on par for whatever that industry is. And many times, they're just not even close. They want someone with a decade of experience, this and that, and $60 an hour at a as a consultant, and you're never going to find someone at that rate.
How does somebody find out the good market rate information? Because we've all seen the recruiter surveys that show these astronomical salaries, which
Yeah.
in some cases only a small handful of people, the Fortune 50, are actually earning, but they're using that to attract people to their companies. So how does one get good information so they know if they're in the right place or not?
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, if you know yourself and you know your value, a person could know, what to command. If a person's been a chief security officer for 15 years and, they want to move, they know they're making X, they know roughly what their friends are making. The chief security officer at Goldman Sachs is making in the millions of dollars. If a person's going to be the chief security officer at the United Way, they're certainly not going to make that salary. There are salary surveys there, but good solid numbers are hard to find, and there is a lot of variables. Rates, salaries in San Francisco, New York, Chicago are going to be a lot higher than in Tulsa or other areas. But I think if you are if a person's a seasoned professional, they'll know roughly, what rates are out there and what they are worth, and they shouldn't have any shock, when they present themselves.
Yeah, I used to live in Tulsa at one
Oh,
time in my life. I was
yeah,
working for American Airlines down there, and yeah, salaries were less down there, but the housing prices were also a lot less too. So it's those communities seem to, that's the other factor, I guess, is we have to look at. You can live in a more remote place, but then your cost of living may be less as well.
yeah. I mean, you'll have parts of New Jersey, parts of Long Island. People could be paying $40,000 to $50,000 in property taxes. That's not their mortgage. That's nothing else. That's. I mean, obviously, when in Tulsa, in South Carolina, maybe on 50,000 acres, you'll pay that. So yeah, New York and New Jersey is there's a luxury tax there.
So, do you think that there's what number would you put to the skill shortage that we have today?
Yeah, I don't know a good number. I think every company, obviously everyone in the say the Fortune 1000 has open information security positions. Um, the more specialized they are, very higher end. AWS, cloud security engineers are going to be harder to find. But I mean, I don't know any real numbers. But they're definitely not in the millions because even assuming even one They said there were 3.2 million open information security jobs in the U.S. That would mean about 1% of the U.S. population is working in information security, which is just a absurd number. Is it a field with a future? Is there a lot of openings? Certainly, but companies are not blindly hiring people. Helen Patton has an interesting book. Forget the name exactly. Entering in
It's the
information,
career path.
entering into information security. You Google Helen Patton, but she makes the point that there is no entry level information security job because information security is built on IT. It's a specialization. So to get to the point where you can work in information security, you really need to have a number of years working in IT. In the same way, you'll have someone, a physician, he'll have take a residency in internal medicine, and then he'll segue into a specialty. But he doesn't, a physician doesn't start in cardiology. They have to do the internal medicine first, and they go to that. And that is the problem with these boot camps is you're taking people who could barely log in, to a Windows box, and expect them, in 6 months to be a valuable information security worker. Boot camps were great in the Army, where it's physical. You could take a weakling, and in 6 months you could make him a very strong warrior. But the brain, doesn't work like that. You can't put someone, 40 hours a week into this class and feed them massive amounts of information, month over month, and expect them to really be able to, after that, hit the ground running and be a valuable resource. So Helen's point is, don't think there's these entry level because you really need to have experience in IT. Then you could segue into security. And I think her point is accurate. And if you speak to people in the industry, they'll tell you that, we don't want someone who just, went through this boot camp. We don't want someone just because they have their Security Plus certification. We want someone who's experienced and understands. And, maybe we'll train them. But, don't expect just a blanket, entry level position in security.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had Helen on the CISO Stories podcast in the past as well, and she has a great book on the career paths. And I told her when her book came out, I was thinking of writing a career path book, but I said, well, she already wrote one that's great, so there was no need for me to spend any time doing that. But and she makes the point too of mid-career people. That we should be going after some of those people that exactly to what you were saying, having the IT background first and then adding the cybersecurity skill sets on top of them. So what do we say to people that say, hey, I want to get into cybersecurity? What's the right path? What should we be saying to them to be realistic about their job opportunities?
Yeah. If they're part of a large organization, a Fortune 500 company, there might be avenues where they can, cross train into information security. If they're in, a smaller organization, there is, they can see if there's, self-training options available. There's a lot of courses they could take to get that understanding. 20 years or so ago, if someone wanted to buy a protocol analyzer, you'd get a network sniffer on a compact laptop, and it would be about $25,000. I mean, now you could buy, Kali Linux, get hundreds of security tools for free, and so people could create a lab in their house and start doing, start training themselves. And it's not that expensive to create a home lab. You don't need a high-end workstation. You could get a used desktop for, $200, $300, and people could start, doing a lot of training, whether it's tools, it could be coding, it could be analysis. There's courses out there, and it's that is one one avenue. SANS has a lot of great courses. It can they're some of the best instructors in the industry work at SANS. The downside is it's expensive, but you do get what you pay for. Some companies will send their people to SANS courses as an investment. You could go to the person could go to the CSO, CTO within the organization, explain their interest, and see if there's a career path, a training path where they could over time get more involved in security. A lot of companies are very open to that because if a person's been at a company 5, 10 years and they've proven themselves to be a valuable employee, odds are they want to stay there. So it's a great investment. So I said, those are a few of, there's a lot of options out there.
What should we be doing as CISOs to fill our open positions? Are we, should we be doing something different than the traditional approaches, or are the traditional approaches fine?
If you're a CISO and you have all the people you need and they're doing well and things are going well, then count they should be happy. If they're struggling to find people, they have to see why is that. A lot of times it's because they're not paying market rates, and I've seen it. I've had on a lot of mailing lists for recruiters, and they'll reach out to me in February about this spot, and then I see it from a different recruiter, 3 months later, the same spot, and then 3 months later from another recruiter, and it's not the recruiter's problem. It's the problem is they're not paying market rates, and once again is certain industries are going to pay a lot more. Financial services in New York pay a lot more than nonprofits or government, but once again they have to be in line with that sector. There's a lot of toxic cultures out there. So look on Glassdoor and see what the current and former employees are saying. Obviously, it has to be taken with a grain of salt because a lot of these, some people do have, gripes. But overall, for large companies, the numbers are relatively accurate. And if you see person after person is saying it's a toxic culture, there's no career opportunities, or they don't give women and minorities options, then they really need to do some analysis internally, because that's really the problem. But once again, is companies that have good cultures, or open or transparent, and pay the people what they're worth, won't shouldn't have these positions open, for extended amount of times. But once again, there is shortages of good information security people. The more technical, the more specialized, it will be harder to find. But I've yet to find a company that is paying market rates that hasn't been able to find people. The ones that complain there's no one out there are the ones that just don't want to pay people what they're worth.
I often heard that if the differential in pay when a recruiter calls you is between 15 to 20% more than what you're currently making, that the individual will take that call. Where if it's any less than that, it's like I don't want to be bothered with that.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables there. If a person's unhappy, they're in a toxic culture, they've been there for a while, and they couldn't move up, they may make a lateral move, and in some cases they may even take a job cut. Once again, if someone's working in financial services, they've been there 20 years and getting a bit burnt out from 80-hour weeks, they may take a significant pay cut to work for a smaller organization, that's for the most part 9 to 5. But yeah, there is so many variables out there. That's part of the issue.
Sure. So this has been great, Ben. So what advice would you have to current CISOs, emerging CISOs, new CISOs as they're trying to navigate the job market and get the people that they need?
Yeah. Um, it's if most people want a job where they're paid well, where they could contribute, where they enjoy working at, opportunities for growth, they're respected, and there's fairness, that there's transparency, and if the organization is like that, people will want to work there. But if there's if it's like Office Space, the people at Office Space, wouldn't let their friends work there because you don't want your friend working in a toxic culture like that. But if most people will, if they enjoy where they're working at, they're more than happy to have their friend come there and work with them. So the key is, everything is top down. Is management needs to build an organization where people want to work. There will be problems, there will be challenges. There's ups and downs, but overall, if it's a good organization, they're realistic. They pay people. They treat them well. They give them opportunities. It really is not rocket science to do that. And if they do that, if you build it, they will come.
Absolutely. I think that's great advice. Thanks a lot, Ben. Thanks for taking the time today to share your insights with us.
My pleasure, Sam.
Thank you for tuning in for this week's episode of the CISO Stories podcast. We want to say a special thank you to Savient, our Diamond sponsor. Please subscribe to the CISO Stories podcast and you will receive a new story each Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll see you next week for a new episode.